Okay, welcome to Lesson 12, Creating a Product Mockup in Perspective. In this lesson, you're going to open up the L12 Start, and then you'll get a artwork that looks like this. Go ahead and save it, and with your Illustrator, go into Workspace and reset Essentials. And we're going to be working with the perspective grid. Now in Illustrator, using the perspective grid, which is this tool right here, and then there's a perspective selection tool as well, you can draw or render artwork in perspective. And you can do this perspective grid in 1-point, 2-point, or 3-point perspective. You can define a scale, you can move the grid planes, and you can draw objects directly in perspective. You can even attach flat artwork onto the grid planes by dragging them with the perspective selection tool. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into your layer panel, and we are going to select perspective, okay? And we are going to be drawing objects in perspective on this layer. But before we get going there, I just want to kind of explain some of the things we have here. This is a plane widget tool. This is the left side of the grid, so when I'm drawing in that, it will be working on the left grid plane. This is the right grid plane, and then this is a horizontal grid. And I can also draw outside of the active grid as well. And then we have various functions here. So this point right here is your vertical grid extent, and this allows you to move your objects, reduce the height and increase the height. We have the perspective grid in here. You have the vanishing points. This is a left vanishing point. Of course, the right vanishing point will be on the other side. You also have the horizon level right here. And then you have the horizon height, which is this area in here. And then this is the left ground level point here. And then you have the entire extent of the grid right here. So definitely go into your book, page 361, where you can learn what these are. Basically, this is the right side and with similar functions. Okay, so in order to begin working with content and perspective, we're going to go ahead and use a preset grid. And to do that, we are going to actually, if you go into View, you will see the perspective grid. Now I can hide the grid, and you can see it's not there anymore. And I can also go to 1-point, 2-point, 3-point. Here would be a 3-point. But I have to show the grid as well here, so just a second, show grid. Okay, so this would be the 3-point, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually choose the 2-point normal view. And it hasn't changed all that much. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to adjust this grid. And so in order to adjust this, we're going to have to be on our perspective grid tool, which is right here. And what we're going to do first is we're going to position the pointer over the left ground point, okay? And you'll see that little cross section here, and we're going to drag it to the left and up slightly. Okay, so it looks like something like this. Okay, and you can see how that moved the entire perspective grid for us. Next, we're going to change the height of the grid. And so again, with my grid tool, I'm going to put the pointer over the vertical grid extent point, and I'm going to bring it down and probably about 5 grid areas there. Okay, and so now I've shortened it. And then I'm going to position the pointer, and I'm going to move this over here. Okay, and we're going to get this showing here. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move this slightly up to about 270. Okay. And then we're going to adjust the plane so we can draw a product box that shows more of one side than the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then go to choose view perspective grid, and then I'm going to go lock points or lock station point. And the reason I'm doing this is that all the this will lock the left and right vanishing points so that they all move together. So then with the perspective grid tool, which should still be selected here, you are going to position the pointer over the right vanishing point. Okay. And when you get a horizontal arrow that shows, drag it to the right until you get an X value of 15. We're going out quite a bit here. Good enough. Okay, and so it's going to look something like this. This changes both planes in the grid, and the product box we create will have a more visible right face. Okay. So this is important if you're doing perspective drawing to try to set up the grid before you begin your project. And I'm going to move this just slightly over here. Whoops, that's good. Okay. Just move that slightly over there because we're going to be putting our box. It's just a little different than the other one. Okay. So what we're going to do next then, let's make sure we're at 15 here. And I have to zoom out a little bit more. Okay. So that has definitely decreased our grid on the left-hand side there. So what we're going to do next then is we'll go ahead and we're going to change, we're going to define our grid, okay? So we're going to go into, and I think I've already changed it, but you may have to do this for yourself. So we're going to go into view, and you want to go to perspective grid, and you want to go define grid. And it's here where you can change our units. We're going to change our units to inches. I guess mine defaulted back to the original. And then the grid line is going to be actually at a 0.3. And then you can go ahead and click OK. And so looks like we've totally lost our left side grid there. Just one second. Okay, so now we're ready to draw objects in perspective. And we can use line group tools or rectangle group tool. And you can do this while the grid is visible. Now, again, we showed you up in the widget, you know, where your left grid, your horizontal grid, and right grid, and then no active grid. So we are going to select the left grid, which you can see it's blue. If I had this one active, it turns orange. Okay. And then I'm going to select the rectangle tool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to position my pointer over the origin of where the two planes connect or intersect, okay? And you'll see that you have a, at the bottom of the crosshairs there, you have a left arrow pointing to left, indicating that you're about to draw on the left grid plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag up until I get a measurement that's 2.4 by 3 high. So that's close enough. So I got a 2.4, and it doesn't have to be exact. Okay. So now I have that side of the box made, the left side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click up here on the fill and I'm going to select box left. And we're going to give it a darker red color. And then I'm going to make sure the stroke is at none. Okay, now you can add rectangles in a different way than just drawing them out. And so with the rectangle tool still selected, I'm going to select the right grid here. Okay, so I can draw on the right grid. And with the rectangle, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to position my pointer over the anchor here. And then I'm just going to click and the rectangle dialog box will come up. Okay. And I am going to create a rectangle at, let's see if I can read it here. It's basically giving me that same size rectangle that I just created. Okay. And then I'm just going to click OK. And now you see that we have it in this area here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to apply a gradient to this. And so what I want to do is I'm going to open up my graphic style panel. And we're going to select the orange gradient here. Okay, and so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm still going to, we're going to select the horizontal grid, number 2. And then I'm going to position, I'm still on the rectangle tool, and I'm going to position my pointer till I hit the anchor. And then I'm going to drag across until I go to the right, far right anchor on the box. And this creates my horizontal top layer. And then I am going to give that a color called box top. Okay, and we've got our first rectangle created. Now I can transform these objects in perspective as well. And so anyways, what we're going to do is now is I'm going to go to the perspective grid tool. Okay, and I'm going to hold it down and you'll see the perspective selection tool, and I'm going to click on that. And then with the rectangle with the gradient fill, which is this one right here, I'm going to select that. Okay, and you can see it's the right side has now showing up in the widget tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the upper right point of the rectangle up and to the left. Okay. And I want to get a 2.1 width and a 3.3 inches. Okay, and now you notice that this, of course, is not in the same relationship to the back. And that's okay because now because we've resized it and it's on top of the box. So anyhow, with this still selected, you'll notice I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Okay, so now the front there, now that side of the box is in the front. Okay, so with the perspective selection tool, I'm going to select the first rectangle that I created, which is on the left plane. And then we are going to click the lower center reference point here. And then I'm going to, this is locked constrained proportions. I'm going to unlock this. And then we're going to change the height to 3.3. And another way to do that. Now, of course, we have this one here that needs to come up. So with the perspective selection tool, I'm going to select the top of the box, and I'm just going to drag the rectangle up slightly above. Whoops. And you'll notice that it gets smaller, which is fine. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in. And then with my perspective selection tool, I'm going to drag to each anchor point here. And presto. Now I can go Command 0 to fit artboard into the window. Okay, so we're at 15 minutes. We'll go ahead and we are going to show you how you can duplicate and copy in perspectives. So this is the end of part 1, and part 2 will be next.